name is Marcia Gosling. I'm a councillor for Highgate Ward.
I'm Councillor Mark Prescott, but Councillor Balls Tottenham.
Sue Jennison, Councillor Newcastle.
Keith Warren.
Yeah, please do.
Keith Warren Service for Children, Families, Children Care, Fostering Adoption, and the Virtual Service.
Jane Edwards, Assistant Director, Schools and Learning.
I'm Senior Reps and Cabinet Member, Children's Schools and Families.
Philip Scholar, I am the Scrutiny Officer for this Scrutiny panel. Just to advise members that so we've got an external microphone in the middle here, and it's also the speaker, so you might have to shout a little bit.
Please.
It might sensitive, but just be directions.
Thank you, Philip. Gina, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gina Adamo, and I'm a councillor and member of this scrutiny panel. Apologies for not being there, but I am in every other sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Good evening, everyone. Jackie Falco, Assistant Director for Early Help Prevention and SEND, and apologies I can't be there with you in person tonight.
Thank you. Caroline?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Caroline Brain, Assistant Director for Children's Commissioning and Programmes.
Great, thank you. I think that's all I can see, those of us here and those of us joining online. Just to bring the meeting's attention to the filming, basically by being here, by being in this room, in this meeting, you're effectively kind of agreeing to the item on the filming, that it could be subsequently broadcasted and so on. Just for you to note that. Any apologies for absence?
We've got apologies from Lords, the co-opted member, apologies from Yvonne, or the co-opted member, and Councillor Bella has given apologies for this.
Thank you for that. Any item 3, items of urgent business? Thank you for that. Item 4, this is for members, councillors, declaration of interest in regards to any of the reports and presentation that we're going to give tonight. Do you have any declaration of interest? No? Thank you for that. Item 5, do we have any deputation, presentation and questions?
No, Chair, it's not.
Right, thank you for that. Item 6, it's minutes of the last meeting, pages 1 to 8. Before I kind of ask the committee to approve the minutes, I just want to give you the opportunity to, does anyone have any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? If not, are we happy to approve the minutes as the correct record of the previous meeting? That's noted, approved, thank you. Item 7, it's the cabinet member questions. So for this item, we have Councillor Zina Barabazan here with us, who will be giving us a brief verbal update about what's been happening in her area. I think actually the highlights are really, just give us the highlights, then members and the co-op members will have some questions you would like to ask Councillor Barabazan. Zina, you can start with a verbal update.
I'm just writing it down. Give me a second.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, since we last met, I suppose the main event has been the Ascend inspection, which occurred just after the Christmas holidays, wasn't it? It was very early in the new year. The inspectors were with us for 3 weeks. I think it was a week, and like a week and a half, actually interviewing all sorts of partners and services and doing case reviews. And there was obviously a first week of desk research. We did get the outcome, verbal feedback, and the inspection report is expected I think probably end of March, some sort of final report should be published the end of March. I want to put on record my thanks to Amanda and Senpal for their participation in the review and for contributing to the inspection. I mean, working collaboratively with Senpal has been very, very positive, and I hope that that is a mutual feeling, but certainly we did engage with and involve Senpal in all aspects of the inspection, and Amanda and Stephanie, her vice chair, were at feedback. So I think co-production has got to be how we work in children's services. In corporate parenting, we've got 2 reports tonight, which are about, well, 3 reports really are about children's social care and looked after children. We had Corporate Parenting Week last week, which was on the first floor of Alexandra House. It was wonderful. I think it was a big first, and on Friday night, the culmination was the award ceremony for our foster parents. And I did say in my speech that I didn't think I could say it without crying, which was true, and I did cry. To meet those parents who brought their, brought their children with them, and to see the devotion and dedication was, well, I found it unbelievably humbling and incredibly moving that we have found such wonderful people in this time to look after and love children and keep them as they grow up. It was wonderful, and I hope that we'll be doing another one. And I hope that members of this committee, when you're on this committee, not necessarily this year, will come and join us. The Corporate Parenting Committee, I think, has really moved on. I'm really pleased with that. I give ourselves a review. We've got the Champions project, and the members of the committee have taken on an area of interest around children's social care, education and employment, health, housing, and they've really, stepped up to they've really stepped up to it. And so I think they're acting as advocates and critical friends. And corporate parenting is very much like a scrutiny committee, but focused on issues to do with looked after children. So that was all going very well. We had an excellent conference last week. Was it last week? It seems like an eternity. It was last week at Spurs for Youth at Risk, our first Youth at Risk annual conference, bringing all sorts of everything you do in children's has to be with other people. It's all about working in relationships and partnerships with other agencies. Very rarely is you just on your own. And the Youth at Risk conference was no exception. So we had the GLA there. Who else was violence reduction? There was I can't think of the projects that were there. Hope in Tottenham, and we had mental health projects. I just can't think of their names there. No, it's gone out of my head. But anyway, there were loads of them, and the police spoke, because of course the police have a big role in youth justice and how they're working with young people. We had a presentation of the data to see what's happening, and it was a very, very, what I'm really pleased about is that the Youth at Risk service has taken much more of the leadership authorities role. There was a governors conference which I attended, and I suppose about 50 governors were there. I think we need to do a bit more work in the area. Well,
education, whatever, it's kind of interesting completely. I just wanted to recognize the positive comments you made about the good working relationship, and more production in action.
And so much so that I forgot to mention the event last week. We had an event last week with SENPAP, which was focusing on mainstream education for children with SEND who are in mainstream schools. And that was, I suppose, about 30 parents or so there. And people gave their stories. We had head teachers there to be on the panel and to hear his experience. And this is the second or third of our such events, and we pick a topic every half term and try and engage with people so we can hear their genuine experience, which of course is important, And so it was, a very, very interesting and useful morning. So, sorry, I can't believe I forgot that.
Thank you for that.
It's the organisation Send Power.
Send Power. SEND capitals in capital. And then lowercase, I think. Is that right?
Yes, I was literally basically commenting on what you said in regards to co-production, how it's sort of in action. And it sounded like that was a really positive way of working with parents, and obviously you're welcome to kind of share your comments as well. And it's just wanted to also mention that was the reason why this committee a few years ago decided that would be the best way forward, is to have a corporate member from representing the SEND children and families permanently here. But that's relationship is it's becoming very, very useful for us to have better understanding of the families and children experiencing difficulties. Any questions here or online? So yes, you have a question.
I wanted to ask more about the experience of foster parents. Essentially, I know lots of people who love to be a foster parent, they couldn't do the giving back bit. So when the children are placed, how long are they placed with a foster family for, roughly? And would it be possible to arrange to, if you know a child's got a really complex background, and they're placed with a foster parent and they get on very well, would it be possible to match a child with a foster person that really wants a long-term fostering experience?
I'm going to ask Anne to answer that question, because I think it's much more of a question about practice than for me. I sat on the fostering panel and, assessed foster carers, a few, not very many, right up to now, but I think your question goes to the heart of the practice. So Anne and Keith are here.
Yes. The answer in short is absolutely yes. And so we have Keith White here, who's our head of service with responsibilities covering fostering, and so I'm going to hand over to Keith to explain the process.
So when a child is placed with foster carers, and there's a strong attachment, as we mentioned, when it comes to moving that child on, depending on the situation and circumstances, we do play it particularly. So we've got skilled professionals from CAMS and the therapists that we can access to ensure a smooth transition to a new carer. It is always hoped that if we place a child with a foster carer, that they're there for them. Always like that. So therefore, when we know they've developed a strong bond and attachment, we put in a therapeutic work to try to enable that child to move on successfully to the new carer. And that is done quite well here in terms of the officers' understanding of the child's emotional needs, emotional welfare, and that is carefully matched with our colleagues in CAMS and other therapeutic services, especially if the child is being placed from foster carers to an adoption. That's where we really involve those therapeutic workers for that transition.
Do you have, like we hear about failed adoptions? How ironically is that? Is it?
Councillor, shall I come in? You're right. And the whole process of caring for a child is a marvellous and wonderful experience. And we're really pleased that our foster carers connect with our children in care. And it's not wrong to say that some of them grow to love the children and they become part of their family. And so you're right, when it comes sometimes to moving a child on, that is a challenging and difficult experience. And so Keith is right, when that's the right thing to do for the child's long term, we support the child and also the foster carer to move on. However, there are occasions when foster carers change their mind and they make a different decision to stay with the child, and there is legislation in place and assessments that need to take place so that child can become a member of the family through, say, a special guardianship arrangement. It's also possible that foster carer might choose to adopt that child. So the child that arrived in their home, that they cared for, we've done our assessments and so on, they might then say, we would like to keep that child as part of our family. So that's always a possibility. But most people who go into fostering go in the knowledge that they will that a child will move on. And so therefore, we support them through that process. The foster carer will have their own social worker, or the supervising social worker, so they can talk about how they feel to their social worker, and the child will have its own social worker, so that the best interests of the child are looked out for. If a child is a baby, it's right that child has a forever family, as we call it, and that they are adopted or they're placed back with their family, but they have permanency. And so therefore, that's what that child's social worker has to focus on. Not that it's going to be a struggle for the foster carer to part from the child. So because those two interests can get confused.
Yeah.
So we have separate social workers for each of them. But it is an amazing experience, and Councillor Brabazone and I and Keith were at the event on Friday, and honestly the stories were heartwarming. And what was best of all is that we could see some of the little angels that they're looking after. There was a story of a young person who wasn't expected to make it, actually. And I remember, because I heard the young person's name, and the doctors had come to me to tell me that they needed to, remove life support, actually, oxygen to the child and all the rest. And that little child moved into actually survived, continued to grow, and he was running around, making noise, they do it. And we were overjoyed, And there was another couple who were there, and they were with a child who just moved to secondary school.
Yeah.
And so they got an award for helping him. And it was really lovely how we celebrated the foster carers while acknowledging that they had helped him through different times. So it is just, I think they're all special people, foster carers, and they do a special job. And so, if you're interested at all, anyone who's interested, yes, we'll support you through that process.
Thank you for that. Mark, you have a...
There has been talks about Jewish fostering.
Yes.
Do you know where we're holding on that?
Do I know where
we're holding on that?
Yes. So, can you be able to...
At the moment, there's been links with the hereditary community, and we are trying to move forward. At the moment, it's not been as straightforward as we'd like it to be, but there is a work plan in place to try and move things forward. We want to have a diverse group group of foster care for our children in an ethnically diverse community. We are still trying to make the pathways in.
What's the struggles? You said it's not really.
Struggles at the moment, I guess, in carers nationally coming forward.
So it's not just with the Jewish.
Not just with the Jewish community, it's a national issue of foster carers coming forward. But obviously, we want to engage the community. We want to bring them on side and get those carers in. So any suggestions you have around that, greatly appreciated.
I actually had a question on that in regards to diversity of it, because obviously Harry is a incredibly diverse family. And I was kind of thinking, how are we trying to reach out to various different groups? Because often, obviously, like from the reports, from the studies, it's like children growing up similar to their cultural environment are better, able to thrive better. So I just wanted to kind of understand a bit more about our strategy of engaging with various different community groups.
Headline answer, then I'll hand over to the people where on Friday were representative of every community who was doing this work. It was absolutely terrific. The children who were of the same ethnicity and some who were not. So the family that Anne mentioned, a little boy who is thriving, I don't think he was in the same community, but he unbelievably loved and supported, and the family looking after him, love him. There he is, he's theirs, you know. I think we can be proud of the diversity of our foster carers. I think we go out of our way to find diverse communities. I mean, it would be astonishing if it didn't represent the community. And I don't really want to say anything about, whether we go for matching and so on and how we do it. But I think you couldn't fail to have been proud of the borough of that event.
It's important that we have, as you say, Councillor Babazon, the widest range of diversities in our fostering community to reflect our community. However, we place children at different phases and stages. So if tonight there's an emergency and a child needs a bed, then there are foster carers who are able to care for that child. And that's one of the challenges with our Haredi community, because we would want to place a child from the Haredi community with a Haredi. And so that's one of the challenges, and anything you can do to help us with that would be much appreciated. And so, there is a new government strategy about secure homes. That's not quite what it's called. Stable homes built on the yes. And so the focus, so the focus is about loving a child. Of course, we take account of the child's diversity and uniqueness all the time while we're working with them. If they're going to be in a long-term stable placement, that's absolutely critical. We have children who say that they want to be in families that look like them, and we have families who say that they want to care for children who look like them. But equally, we have the opposite too. And so, there are no strict rules. It's always unique, a unique assessment for that child and that family.
So, yes. So I remember there's one little boy I worked with once who, he was 3. I don't know why he was with a foster family, but he was. And he was being moved on. Now, am I guessing that he's being moved on to a stable family because he was then, he knew that would be the last day he saw his foster mother. So this clean break thing, is that hard and fast, or is it, are there no strict rules on that? Or does it completely depend on, like, so his adopted parents living in Manchester and he's from here, they just decided, so how does that all work out?
There's no hard and fast rule, because we work with the individual and the uniqueness and the context of their setting. So there have been occasions, in my experience, where it's been hard and fast. Parents are a threat to a child, they're a threat to the foster carer, they're a threat to the home. The court makes its decision, boom, you know, a decision is made. But there are other times when the process is much more gentle and therapeutic than that. So there's no real hard and fast. It is about the social worker making the assessment for the child based on the family's needs and circumstances. Yeah. That's it. Would you
And
like
along
to-
with that, they would have a life journey book, a life story book, so that understands, you know, later on in life, the changes from moving from one care adopted placement to an adopted placement where the child is might has that long-term forever family, which is obviously in the child's best interest. So with the three, as you mentioned, and that would, the child would fall within the adoption framework under 6, and therefore would be looking to be adopted. It would work with the foster care, to work with the adopted where possible, to ensure that's a smooth transition as possible.
Yeah, sorry, can we just move on to, I mean, so you could come back and ask your final question. I feel like there's a lot of other areas that Councillor Brabazon is managing, overseeing, and it will be really useful to kind of have a much more broader discussion than just speaking on one area. I'm listening, that's important, not hearing. Yeah, please ask your question. I wanted to ask you.
When children I was going to ask something about being in care, but I can't remember exactly what I was going to ask. And I mean, being fostered is part of the care system, isn't it? I don't know, I suppose, because some kids are temporarily in foster care and then return to their families once their families, you know, become stable. So I can't remember what I was going to ask now. So.
Yeah, any other questions in any other areas? I know obviously we just recently set up a balanced budget. I just wanted to, I always go on about like the impact of future. I mean, let me rephrase my sort of question in a bit. Basically, it's been a very, very good year for children and young people. I mean, we had a brilliant offset with the result last year, and we've made good progress in terms of like working with our children with our SEND children, and we are like progressively making kind of progress in the right direction. So I often worry when I'm thinking about the future and the other challenges that are going to come in regards to obviously restricted budgets and so what's your thoughts and what do you see the challenges kind of being for children and young people in the next 6 months?
Well, let's see what Jeremy Hunt has to say tomorrow, shall we? That's the first thing. Let's see what's in the national budget. What the challenge is? The challenge, well, the money is a challenge. We know that. But there's a huge challenge for schools. That would be my first response, because school budgets are absolutely underfunded. So we've got a double whammy of school budgets that are restricted because there's not enough money going into the education system to fund the schools, and the falling rolls together. That's causing that will cause a huge problem here, as it has caused in other boroughs. So we have to see how that plays itself out. We see how many reception places there are for September 20 children coming through for school places, and we'll see how many, if the numbers are up or down. And that has an impact, obviously, because we fund schools, bums on seats. The other challenge, I think, is going to be implementing all this new expanded childcare programme, which is coming in April. And you may wish to have a report new municipal year about the expanded childcare programme. There's a lot of pressure, there'll be a lot of pressure on the officers to administer it, which we do on behalf of all the hundreds of providers in the borough of dispersing the money. It comes to the council, goes out to them. But because of the way the government's expanding, it's very bureaucratic, it's very demanding, you have to keep counting. The providers have to submit head counts every so often, and parents have to reapply for the 3 hours every few months. So the whole thing is top-heavy with bureaucracy, and not focusing where it should be. So we have got an extra 10 million into the early years budget, which came through dedicated schools grant. What's called the early years block. But we have to manage that money and get it out to the providers. So from April, all 2-year-olds will be eligible for 15 hours for free. From September, it goes up to, we bring in the babies, and then in 25, I think, in April 25, that goes up to 30 hours. So the government's pouring billions in, but there's a report which says it's not enough. And the way they're doing it, they could invest the money a bit more wisely. But anyway, I think those are big challenges financially. And then, of course, we've got in our own budget how we get through the next few years in our 5-year programme. I think that would be about the size of it, really.
Thank you for that. Mark, do you have a question?
Yeah, can I ask about, every council is struggling with agency,
With
permanent social workers, and you've got agency. Now, families with SEND are finding it very difficult when it keeps on changing, and we can't blame anyone. I'm just wondering, maybe we can come up with, I was thinking of the other portal, where the parents can log in and see who the caseworker, who it's changed to, because, people send, the family is disrupted, and they don't know what from one day to the next, and then they can see what's going, who they're spoken to, what was said, and if they've got that portal, and then especially when it goes to that transition to the adults, they can just follow through, and that will make life easier.
They're not scans response, it really is operational.
Yeah, I was going to say there's quite a lot of work that's going to go into that transitionary period, but I'll ask Anthony.
And we have Jackie online as well. So part of our plan is that we move to one of those portals, and you would have seen in the report, in the annual report, that we've moved our system from Mosaic to Liquid Logic, and it's a matter of the commissioning arrangements really that means we haven't had the portal that parents can access. That's not yet. We're in the process of commissioning that. So we've got Jackie and Caroline on board who both will be able to, but I'll go to Jackie. Jackie, is there anything you'd like to add?
And I'm really sorry, I don't know if there's some background noise, but it is quite challenging to hear the question. So I think the question was around parenting?
No, it's about the add-on to the Liquid Logic system, so that parents with EHC plans and also professionals can access a portal. Did you hear that,
Yes.
Jeff? Yeah,
So I can hear that.
saying that we've implemented Liquid Logic, and it's our intention to commission the portal. I don't quite have the timescale in my head, so I think it was just a bit more about that. And we've got both you and Caroline who work in that field.
Yeah, so if I talk about the rationale, what we intend to do, and Caroline can advise on timescales because she's kindly leading the work for us. So essentially that's what the intention is. So right now we do have obviously a very robust system, but it is mainly for professionals within Safeguard and Early Help and the SEND service. What we want to introduce is something called the EYES module, which will be able to pull together all of our information in relation to admissions, all of our schools data, but also be able to have something called the I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called the professional portal. And essentially that means that we'll be able to ask external professionals, and parents and carers would have the ability to be able to see their child's plan in relation to the education healthcare plan, but also contribute to it. And so we think that will really make sure that when we have team around the family meetings that professionals or parents can't attend, they would still have the opportunity to provide that information and also see live information about their child, obviously taking into account that we might need to have certain restrictions for sensitive data. So that's the plan, and I'll hand over to Caroline to talk about the timescales.
Okay, thanks for that, Jackie. So in relation to the plan, where we're at just now is we're scoping it out. We've had demonstrations from Liquid Logic on eyes and another organisation as well. What I'm in the process of doing just now is developing the business case, because we'll need to come back to Cabinet because there will be a financial ask associated with this. In relation to realistic timelines, we're looking at 12 to 18 months before it actually, if approved, is implemented, just because of all the back office things that you have to do. So that's where we're at with it at this point in time. Hopefully that's helpful.
Mark, you wanna
I think that's great.
follow up?
Sorry?
A follow-up question.
I think that's amazing. But I'm just wondering if we could make sure to get the parents on board to know what they want, to make sure it's it's user friendly and what they want on the portal. So it's not on the opposite side; it's on also parents.
Or the system is designed from the parents' needs.
Can have their input into it.
So we're not starting from scratch. We're buying something that is already sort of developed, and so the providers would have built the product based on what professionals and parents wanted. So we're not building something from scratch, but certainly what we know is and Caroline's nodding, what we know is that this is a system that is parent friendly as well as professional friendly. Thank you.
Good to know. Thank you for that. I'm gonna close this session if there's no further question. Any further questions? I should have asked that. If not, I'm gonna close this this item. Thank you very much, Zina and Anne, for answering our question. Our next item is item 8 is the private offspring report, and it's from September 2022 to 23, covering pages 9 to 16. And Keith Warren is going to introduce the report to the panel, and obviously following then after that, members can, this report is for noting, but we can also input and ask questions if we feel like it. Keith, you can start your presentation.
To the report, so I hope members have had the opportunity to
Yes,
the report.
we all have a copy.
Yeah. And so obviously, as you've cited quite clearly, Chair, this is a private fostering report from September 22 to September 2023. And the purpose of the report is to update all of the members in relation to private fostering in terms of our compliance with the private fostering arrangements, our duty to monitor the visits within our local communities and to ensure that we're building up awareness within our local communities around private fostering. And the report covers those specific periods. I refer to the report set out to the extent to which foundations are compliant with meeting the statutory children, these testaments and the arrangements of those assessments. And so in terms of the background, as we're all fully aware, around the tragic death of Victoria Clearbier, the Layman Review came up with quite a few regulations and legislation in relation to how we monitor and review private fostering arrangements. The private fostering arrangement is deemed when a child under the age of 16 and 18 if the child has a disability and is placed for 28 days or consecutively with an adult that's not a relative, that is deemed to be a private fostering arrangement. There's different types of private fostering arrangements. Those children that come from abroad or sent from other family members to carers here that are not relatives. These are private fostering arrangements. We've done a lot of work in relation to looking at the arrangements within our boroughs to ensure that no child who is placed in a private fostering arrangement is not receiving the right support from the local authority. In terms of the legislation as outlined, Children Act 1989 guidance to private fostering, the Children Act 2004 amended section 67 in 1989. Right, so we have clear statutory expectations in relation to privately fostered children. They are the most vulnerable children in our local authority, and we, whenever possible, should be notified of these arrangements at the outset. The local authority has a duty to assess any private fostering arrangement when there's a notification received that the local authority becomes aware of a private fostering arrangement that exists. We have duties to discharge our functions in relation to private fostering, provide a written report each year for the consideration of Director of Children's Services, which includes an evaluation of the outcomes and the work in relation to privately fostered children within the area. Local authorities are also required to present our information and our data and our compliance to the How Engaged Children Safeguarding Partnership. So what do we do in terms of the welfare of promoting privately fostered children in our borough? We've got a qualified social worker, or a few within the MAS system, that go and visit children that are placed in private fostering arrangements, and we make those visits within 7 days. Once we identify a child who's privately fostered, we will do those checks of the household members. Over the time that they've lived at the address, we will check with the parents to ensure that they're agreeing to this being a private fostering arrangement. And we'll do agency checks with other partner agencies to ensure that arrangement is safe. Once we have completed the checks, we will do due diligence and we'll be visiting that child every 4 to 6 weeks to ensure that there are no issues in terms of placement. And we will be robust in terms of what we expect in terms of the arrangements for that child to be looked after. So we will be challenging the carers, we'll be ensuring that there's a robust assessment of that child's needs to ensure those carers are providing the right level of care for those children's needs that are placed in these arrangements. And once we satisfy ourselves that it is deemed to be a private fostering arrangement, we will write to the carers, the private fostering carers that have been identified, and we'll write to the parents as well to ensure that everyone is clear that this is a private fostering arrangement to which the parent is with an agreement. For those situations where we complete our checks and we find that the private fostering arrangement is not safe for that child, then we'll take legal measures and we'll speak to the parent in relation to the arrangement and will not sanction that as a private fostering arrangement. So in Harrogate, so what are we doing in terms of our response to private fostering? Well, we've got clarity in terms of the front end of the service, in terms of social workers knowing what a private fostering arrangement is. Any arrangement that's going to be private fostering will be overseen and scrutinised by managers, team managers, service managers to ensure it's the right decision to be made in terms of that child's best interest. The Assistant Director, Debbie Hendricks, has identified additional resources to look at children who are not placed with birth parents. So that's something significant to ensure that we are not missing any opportunities out there. So any practitioner who's a child where they're not living with a birth parent, and to present the issues as to why. So we can fully have those discussions around whether or not it constitutes a private fostering arrangement or not, or whether or not it's a different type. But we've been sure to have a better eye and focus on whether all workers that find themselves in a situation where they have a child who's not placed with a birth relative, that we're clear about what that arrangement looks like. So we have continued to develop our links with Quorum BAP, and we recently attended a Quorum BAP network meeting yesterday, where this report will talk about the decline in the number of private fostering arrangements, and that is a decline nationally across the piece in relation to the decrease in private fostering arrangements, which coincides with COVID and the impact of COVID and people not wanting to take in these arrangements due to the pandemic, which during the time period from September 2022 to 2023, COVID was relevant in terms of its impact on the number of private fostering arrangements. So this one in terms of the notifications. So if you see, I refer to table 4.9, table 1, you will see from 2020 to 2023, in 2020 we had 12 privately fostered children increased in 2021-22 to 15 children privately fostered. And then you'll see in 22-23 forward the numbers to 8, which is comparative to our statistical partners. So in terms of the demographics, we have children coming, as we mentioned earlier, from various different communities. So we would identify them as coming from some Turkish communities, white British communities, Afro-Caribbean communities. So there's a spread of children aged between 9 and 14, typically in these types of arrangements. And then we have one child who was split. So we have 8 currently that we had during 22-23 with child that were privately fostered. And the main source of where the referrals were coming from was either our internal social work department, police, health, and education, who seem to be referring the majority of those arrangements. We to satisfy ourselves that there's no issues with private fostering, we exercise due diligence to ensure that we speak to the children alone, not only in the house, also at school, or where they feel comfortable. It's really important that we get to the bottom of any concerns for a child that is privately fostered. And we do go that extra mile to ensure we have robust decisions in place to ensure that child is appropriately safeguarded. So what are we doing to promote private fostering in Haringey? Well, as you can see, we are involved in the GP forums, ensuring that they're clear about what private fostering is and whether or not they can increase the awareness around it. We're involved with the designated school leads to ensure that any child that comes to school in a private fostering arrangement is referred to us. We've done work with police response teams and community safety about fostering. We make links with the Faith Flora, which is the mosque, around private fostering to ensure that we get referrals from them. We've developed, as we spoke earlier, Councillor Roscoff, in relation to the hereditary community, developed links. They are still in infancy, trying to get through to in terms of trying to identify arrangements, but we continue on. And we've got a worker in the MASH who's already linked into the community, so I'm happy to take any support you can provide about how we can increase the awareness around that. And we've advertised in libraries, cinemas, job fairs, recruitment centres. During corporate parenting week, we have stalls out again, private fostering. Any opportunity we can to promote fostering and private fostering, we're out there, stalls, banners, marketplaces, and get trade to come through the doors so we can make sure we have the right children and that they are appropriately safeguarded. So, additional to the work that we're doing in terms of increasing awareness, there's also strategic group focus on private fostering led by Betty Hendricks and assistant directors in partnership with local council members in an attempt to raise the profile of private fostering in Haringey. That's very important.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Pete. Sorry. Yeah. I was going to say, obviously, that's a really good report outlining how we are kind of promoting, not promoting, sorry, like raising awareness about the private hospital and so on. So the report is explaining all of that really well. So I've got a couple of questions of my own, and also I've noticed that Councillor Andrew has her hands up. I was going to say, obviously the report at the same time highlights that some of those children who are in private fostering arrangement might be at high risk, so on. So my question would be, first of all, is there any incentives for private foster parents to come forward and declare that they are kind of, or is there a law that obliges them to do it, or how does it work? Because usually, how do we even in first place identify that these children are with privately fostered parents, and also it comes to my mind like potentially, because the age of children could be like from 8 to 12, and all that, like modern day slavery concept, and people bringing children to work as domestic servants, all sorts of things. And it's a really, like when I was reading the report, I'm glad to see all the measures in place to kind of identify and support those children. But at the same, when there are risks, obviously, but at the same time, I was kind of reading alarm. So I suppose, are there any incentives for these people to come forward and just say, I'm actually fostering my nephew whose parents are living overseas, somewhere else, and I'm just giving them a home, but I'm, open and transparent about what's happening, and I want the child to do well. Yeah, just your kind of things.
The incentive is that they have a social worker that's able to meet with them every 4 to 6 weeks to ensure that they're managing to ensure that the child's needs are being met. So they have a support from us in relation to.
So that will be an incentive for them to come forward.
Yes, they're also getting the support of the parents, because obviously it's their arrangement that we're agreeing that parents are actually supporting their friend. How long it's for the child's impact potentially. But what I would say to you in terms of risks, out of the 8 children I've identified in this report, 5 have returned successfully home to their parents. So they're going home safely. There's been no risk in terms of that process, because we robustly checking, monitoring, and ensuring there's no risk. So the 5 that have gone home, no problems with, but we've got 2 that we're still assessing, and 1 that is a long-term arrangement. And the feedback in one of the reports is that the in-person loves sent back to foster care.
I mean, and I'm going to bring you in, but in most cases, like you're right, it's like private arrangement does not necessarily mean there's something impunitive or whatever happening. It could be that child is coming to stay with relatives for 6 months over the school, 6 weeks over the school break to learn English, and they're going back. I think my concern would be for those extremely vulnerable, like people sending their child to somewhere else because they think it will help them to escape poverty or give them an education. Yeah, and you wanted to come in.
Yeah, thank you for your response. And keep this spot. And the risk is always those that we don't know, and that's why we are asked always to raise the awareness, because it's not, people don't automatically think that the child who comes to my family or for the summer holidays is a private fostering arrangement. It's not something that trips off the tongue. So therefore, it's, particularly if it is the holidays, that child isn't going to go and be in a school necessarily or a setting, so they can evade detection. And so that's why we continually want to raise awareness and ask that you, in your situations, in your settings, raise awareness, so that we're always thinking, is this child a member of that family, and is this something that we need to refer in, so we can assess for the issues that you've said. So for those that we know, we can become involved, but the issue is always those that we don't know about.
I suppose that's spot on again. My next question was going to be, how do we find out about those kids who are potentially raised, or what do we, is there a way that we could, I don't know, make that path easier for those children to access something?
I think it's as Keith set out in this report, going to GPs, because if a child is harmed, then they're likely to go to the GP. Going to faith groups, so that faith groups understand the notion of private fostering, all of them, to go to schools, so that schools understand, there are children who come and the children go to school. So everywhere where there are children, that we are out trying to raise awareness of the concept. It is awareness raising all the time.
Yeah. And possibly like hospitals.
Absolutely, yes, particularly in hospitals, because sometimes it can be assumed that the child that somebody comes in with is their own, but actually we want hospitals to ask the question, you know. And then when they do ask the question, lots of people get offended because they're asking, of course it's my child. So it's the way it's done as opposed to whether we do it or not.
Mark, I've got Gina first, then I'll take you and you as well. Okay, Gina, you first, Mark, then Amanda.
Thank you, Chair. I was just, I got two questions really. And I hope I don't sound silly about it. The first one is, if we still have the fostering and adoption panel we used to have in place, and I served on it for many years, and if we still have that, can I ask whatever the children come through a private arrangements, do they still go to the foster and adoption panel for a discussion, for a decision making, or does the manager, a manager of a social worker makes a decision whatever is appropriate, therefore, and agree the private fostering, or do we not have a say whatsoever? Yes or no, whatever we approve or not. That's one of the questions I really wanted to ask. And
Gina, sorry, can I just interrupt you just for a second, just to say that there is a background noise here, and I'm afraid we might not fully hear what you're saying, so please don't be offended. It's the background noise that's causing us to repeat something. Sorry, ask your second question.
The second question is, if the fostering panel does exist, is there a council member of that panel? Because it always used to be the case. And if there is, would they consider having a member of the scrutiny panel, this scrutiny panel, to sit on that? Because it's nothing, there is no better way of learning about the service we provide than taking part in those panels, if they still exist. Thank you.
Yeah, did we got the question? Okay, brilliant. Yes.
So if I can summarise, the first question is, do the private fostering assessments go to private the fostering and adoption panel? Number one, does the fostering and adoption panel exist? Councillor Adamu, yes, the fostering panel exists, and there's a separate adoption panel that exists. And the private fostering reports don't go to those panels because it's a separate, it's a family arrangement. So they're not there for endorsement. And the second question, I think, was for those panels, fostering panel and adoption, can councillors be a member? And the answer is?
I'm on the fostering panel. I'm not sure who's on the adoption panel because it's a bit different now. It's Adoption North London.
That's
so it's
right.
a regional arrangement, so I think it's slightly different now. But yes. I've joined the fostering panel. I've been doing it on and off for a few months, and it's very interesting. And I think there may be another member dormant. I'm not sure, but I'm an active member.
Okay, so at the moment you are the member representing.
I'm the councillor.
Yeah, the councillor member is also overseeing the children. Is that all, Gina?
I think so. It's very difficult for us to hear you as well because of the background.
I'm really sorry. It's completely out of our control. Very sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Mark, you have a question, then Amanda.
It's two questions. The first question is, what's the difference between private fostering and home fostering? And the second question, you mentioned that the incentive for private fosters to come forward is that they get a social worker with them. Now, if you go out to anyone and say, do you want a social worker? They'll run out. So how can, you might have to change the name social worker to caseworker, whatever it is. I think we come up with an initiative to turn to people and say, look, you know what, we're here to help you and not to the old fashioned that we're going to take the children away from you.
If I may.
Yeah.
So I would be, I understand why you say social worker will take the child away from you, but I would, with respect, say that's not what social workers do. Social workers work to do a fantastic and brilliant job in my, you know, being a qualified social worker.
I understand that, but try and sell that to the local public.
And so, yes, but I just wanted to make that point. I don't think we're going to change the name because that's in statute what we must do. But I do understand it's one of the things that happens, that actually people do see foster care social workers as a support in these arrangements. But that's not the first selling point. The first selling point is the safety and care of children and well-being. And so anyone who comes into contact should make that referral, and then we'll make the best arrangement to be sure that, so, you know. Please, if anyone does say social worker and take your children, please, I do ask you to say that actually, you know, there is another side. That is one of the, that is actually a myth. Social workers go to the courts who make the decision about removal of children. You know, it's a delicate point. we are social workers are associated.
And the difference between private fostering and fostering.
So private fostering is a private arrangement between the parent who's got parental responsibility and the friend that they have as part of their family. That's a private arrangement. The task of the foster carer, obviously, it comes and is assessed and is checked, and then it's assessed to be a good foster panel and assessed to be a foster carer. There are two different.
Yeah, Amanda, then Mark, sorry, are you finished?
Thanks very much.
So you will be next. Amanda, you have.
I have a statement to the question. I was listening to when you were talking about ethnicity, and found when you said Afro-Caribbean, because I thought we were talking about Africans, or we talking about Caribbean. It's a equated term, and I'm not sure that as part of the global majority we appreciate that. But when I look in your report, it actually says Jamaican heritage. So I wondered why you didn't just say ethnicity black or Caribbean. That's just something I'd like you to know, because obviously as a woman, I'm not a woman of colour, I'm black. And for some of us, that kind of Afro-Caribbean is very anti-British. And also it's kind of a bit demeaning. So that's the statement I want to make. And the question I have is about, in terms of fostering and everything that you said, and thank you for you know, for the report and going through it. What about young people who were fostered that have additional needs or are sent children? Is that that specific thing? You said children who are being fostered. Not the moment, but do you have, is there do you have a pathway or is it planned for the event that you do as children that we foster?
So are we talking about private fostering? So for private fostering, it is those, the children the families would have made the arrangements. So if it's so if the children have additional needs or special needs, then those are the children we will work with. And then we will work with them as we would any other member of our child population, those would send. For our general population, then of course we deal with children with all their uniqueness, including those with special needs. And as you heard us say, that when we were at the event on Friday, you know, there were children running around with special needs, you know. Yes, so there's no distinction at all. We work with children, their uniqueness, whatever that is.
I suppose I was gonna also add that in regards to like trying to identify privately fostered children, like the same rule applies to children with disability and children and And with everyone, because I mean, the risk to those children is like, they're like probably not known to any system. If abuse is or neglect is taking place, then nobody would know about it, would be able to do anything about it. It's about identifying them, and that applies to, yeah, if they've got special needs, maybe other health problem, health identity.
I would agree. And I think the positive thing about private fostering is that if we go into a family, we're able to assess the needs of the child and give that additional support, be social workers or other workers. So we can pick those things up that the family might not have identified. That's a positive.
Yeah. Chair, can I just add something before we leave this topic? The thing with child fostering is you only know what you know. That's the crux of the issue. So we don't know if there are children being fostered we don't know about, and nobody's reported it, then the local authority can't fulfil its statutory duty. But the Keys to Report sets out in paragraph 4.4 what the local authority is required to do, and as he says, this is if children are vulnerable, you don't know they're there unless you have a means of reporting. And of course, we know from political experience that this far, as the introduction to the report sets out. And that was exactly the position of Victoria Cabinet.
Yeah, I think that's why it's extremely obviously worrying, but it's obviously discriminating welcomes all the work that's gone into, because there is a history of child private fostering arrangement. Somebody died and there wasn't much that local authority could do about it because we didn't really know much about it. Okay, sorry, there's Sue has a question, but you want to come back as well.
And it's probably for outside of this meeting, but I've done a word search on the report. And I only see Jamaican at section 4.9.6, and that's we're talking about the small cohort of children. And what we've done is we've identified we've identified all of their heritages, probably as they described as Jamaican, Spanish, and Turkish. So so what I understood, and it's probably my understanding, that we're not using Jamaican to describe Black as a global majority. That's what I heard, but I see that that's not. But just for the minutes, that what we've done is at 4.9.6, we describe how the children probably have described, how their families have described themselves. So it's getting the respect both ways. Oh yes, that point I haven't had a look at.
Thank you for clarifying that. So we're gonna ask your question, then we're gonna move because we've got two reports to discuss and have. Yes.
It's a very quick question. Zena, you said something about adoption being regional. Is there a national database of adoption, or is it small
I'm going to
pockets?
pass over to Anne. I know much of the answer, but I think it's an Anne question.
So in short, every local authority used to have their own adoption agency. Literally, they were their adoption service. We have a fostering service and we have an adoption service. And the government, 2024 now, around 2016, brought in a new arrangement whereby local authorities were asked to form clusters. Rather than having individual foster adoption agencies, we were to join together to form one. And so that's the region that Councillor Bradford is referring to. So we are part of the Adopt London North. That's the adoption group that we're part of, with all the NCL, so Barnet, Enfield, Hackney, Islington, and Camden, and ourselves. And Islington's the lead borough. So we all gave our social workers, literally social workers, to Islington to manage, to do the work on our behalf. And so periodically, I think it's in this meeting, we have Lydia Samuels. She'll come with the annual adoption report. I think she comes to this meeting.
I don't remember receiving reports to do adoption.
I think she might come to corporate
Is it corporate parent?
but I do wonder, perhaps we discuss maybe, maybe when she's coming, we can invite scrutiny members to this.
Yes, that would be really good. Yes, yeah.
That would be
It's all the same.
It is, yeah. So that was, and so across, and it was a statutory requirement that we had to join somebody who does adoption. So across London, there were 4. Because South London had 1, they might have split into 2. Yeah. And if you didn't want to join with your local authority neighbours for whatever reason, then you had to join somewhere like Quorum, that was an existing voluntary organisation. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chief. There's no more question on this topic. We're moving to item 9, sorry. Social care annual performance. Originally, we allocated a considerable amount of time for this item to be presented and for us to have the opportunity to ask the question as well. But Beverly and Grace, we would have been here to answer some of our questions and also present the report. It's on annual leave at the moment. So for this item, we are going to have it's the social care annual performance report. It's an important report, obviously, for us. And I'm guessing that we all have an opportunity to have a read. But it will be the same report will come to this committee in September as well with the new updates. So for this item, what I suggest is that if we have any questions that we were planning to ask them, we could ask them in written form. Then that way our question will be answered, but we will get that update in future as well. And is there anything you want to add to this item?
Yes, so that I'm pleased the report is here, and apologies for the context it's delivering. It covers 22-23 and is focused on social care, and it's a rich report, and we're really pleased with lots of the positives that's within the report. It sets out the governance arrangements that we have. It tells you how we scrutinise, how children's social care and children looked after services are scrutinised through members' relationships and meetings with the leader. Councillor Brabazon and I were challenged by the leader. It talks about the Harrogate Safeguarding Partnership, and it mentions this group too as having an opportunity to scrutinise. It talks about some of the challenges we have at section 7.1. Placement costs are a challenge, of course. There is a demand always that we're working with. Recruitment for technical social workers are always an issue. And of course it mentions the IT system that we've moved to. It mentions some of the local context, such as the high rates of domestic abuse that we work with, and also I think incredibly important, the very, very high rates of our children and young people living in temporary accommodation. It goes on to speak about some of our achievements, particularly in education for our children with SEND and those who are looked after in care. And of course it mentions at point 8 the Ofsted inspection, and if I might just remind everybody, because I don't miss an opportunity if I can, at 8.6 we refer to paragraph 59 that talks about the culture within social care. I never missed the opportunity, I'm sorry. And so we're happy, and then we talk a lot about the performance from section 9 onwards of the service. And so, Chair, would be happy to receive questions. Bev will have the depth and be able to respond.
Thank you very much for that. Obviously, we can, like, if there's any issue, any question that you're kind of highlighted while you were reading the report, we're happy to ask them in form of written question. But otherwise, I wanted to also mention that this is a good report. It's a detailed report. It sort of gives us quite a lot of areas to kind of have a better understanding of the context of, you know, social care in Haringey. But I was actually, there are lots of positive things, but challenges. The challenges are presumably not unique to Haringey. I think one of my kind of sort of immediate reaction to part of the challenge in the report is like local background and context. 7.2 and 1 is the level of poverty, and Haringey being amongst the 8 highest portion of child poverty area. So I think that's really obviously something for this committee to be concerned rightly, and it's something that maybe we would like to have an update on what exactly. I mean, we know that there were safety nets. The household support fund was some sort of safety net for families with children living in extreme poverty. But now that we are not sure what's happening with that, I suppose this committee would be interested in knowing how are we supporting our families with children living in extreme poverty here. Do we have a strategy to help them and assist them in that difficult time? I think the second take for me was basically, and also a clarification, which I'm sure I probably misread it. It says, again, it's the same paragraph. Haringey had 1,023 hospital admissions for alcohol-related conditions. So I'm guessing that's children's parents, not children. Yes, oh, thank God. Yes, okay, that's.
However, I will clarify to be certain. We do have young people who are admitted for alcohol-related situations, but they tend to be older children.
I was going to say that's probably like under 16s, but they're not as young as 10, 12. You know, they oh, that's Eastern. Yeah, I suppose the other kind of sobering take on this report was the fact that most of the children who are kind of coming into contact with police and as an incident referral to the front door are, in majority of the cases, domestic violence is a high factor. So I would probably like to maybe understand a bit more, like how are we helping these families I mean, it seems to be like a global, not global, like it's probably affecting all the boroughs in London equally, which probably needs to be taken much more seriously by the policymakers. Yeah, I think there was another positive, that school kind of, now I can move to some of the positives. Schools are judged as good and outstanding by offset and the recent offset with results. That kind of basically, there were all different areas. So the impact of leaders on social work practice with children and families good. The experience and progress of children who need help and protection is very good. And the experience and progress of children in care requires improvement to be good. So basically that's an area that will nicely kind of lead us into the next report, our looked after children. And that's one of the areas that's been highlighted as requiring improvement. I would be, committee would be keen to find out what are we putting in place to bring that area also to a good standard? I'm interested in hearing that. On that note, I'm going to move to the next item if there's no question. Amanda, you have your hands up.
Yeah, if
Please, you can.
my concern, I know this is about looked after children specifically, but in terms of special care, we have a number of our special needs children who fall through the net during the transition from child. From child to adult, but it's all under social. Yes.
I think if you want to have a particular question, because obviously we would have had Beverly Hendricks, our assistant director, she's not here, but we can still ask those questions. And I think, maybe rightly, what's our strategy in terms of making sure that children moving into young, like different services, so they need to change. They need to move into a different kind of support system, education and everything else. So transition, what's happening? How would you frame the question? How would you?
It's difficult to really phrase the question because I'm very aware, certainly since now we're very involved with issues that are going on with the local authority.
Yeah.
And I'm aware that social care in terms of children and adults, there is hopefully a pathway or some kind of union between the two entities so that we don't have. But it is something that, for myself, something that I had to deal with last week, which involves a lot of what we're talking about today. This is a young person who fell through the net between children's services, the adult services, and the situation escalated. But this young person is not an isolated incident. So it's.
I was going to, obviously, Anne wants to respond to that. Before I bring you in, I was going to say there is, obviously, the last year's budget, there is investment into that area as well, which this community will be key to kind of see how that service is developing and what's the feedback from parents and so on. And
just to say, the scope chair of this report is children's social care, and that sort of front door, and that applies to all children. I think Amanda is another report in another area that does sit under that sits under Bear Bands, also Jackie and also Jane. Actually, it's that transitions and adult and to adulthood. But I think I have a different view of the particular case, and I won't rehearse a particular case here. But I'm not entirely sure that person fell through the net. I feel the system, from what I know, actually did respond. So I just think it's, but I'll speak outside. So I'll speak outside, so we don't speak about particular case.
That's a particular case that we However, what I hear from my membership, from those who, especially for families whose children maybe do not have a complex additional needs. So if they have more complex needs, that transition into adult social care is kind of really smooth. But for the ones that don't, then we have families whose children have elected not to speak because the transition is so bad. We've got youngsters who literally, families are kind of fighting, and their youngsters, I call them youngsters, children in their 20s, however, anybody from kind of 18 to 23. There's a few of them in the 3 years that I've been showing who have fallen through the net and they're not picked up anywhere until they're trying to get either an additional service or they're trying to get back into education. So that may well indeed be another conversation.
Yeah, I think that's definitely important conversation for another time. But also, I think in the past we did recognize that some young people certain condition or certain type of spectrum, they don't get diagnosed as children, but when they grow up into, like, in their 20s, there is clearly something, there's a need, the child has the young person has a need, but that need was never established when they were young, so it's far more complicated for them to test and, to be able to find that. Yeah.
Again, but that is something else that certainly for the ones that are diagnosed and do get support whilst they're younger. It's just, and it's unfortunate that this is just the way that it's been for a little while now, where some whose needs are not maybe as complex. The next lot of criticism is just the generation and also
That's good to know. I think going forward, then we could potentially say what type of support is around that. Like, there need to be a clear support when somebody's support is being stopped or winding down, and like, they need to be having additional support of some kind, even if it's not high risk or high. Sorry, Sue, did you have your hand up?
Yes.
Because I was very keen to move forward to the next, but I'll take your question, of course, then we will move on.
So it says at the end of March 2023, 80% of children with placements in or within 20 miles.
Which report are you referring to?
9.85, so it should still be this one.
Or is it the social care report?
I moved on.
Have you looked after children?
I'm doing this on my phone.
Oh, okay, sorry. It's still the same report.
Still the same. How come? Because 20 miles, within 20 miles of Harringay, if you're 20 miles away from Harringay, that's a lot of, that's a lot of being cut off from a lot of things. What brings around that sort of situation and what we do about it?
So the measure is an indicator, and so it's an indicator. So when the government set up the indicators, that's what they put in place. So within 20 miles could be Barnet, Enfield, Hackney, and whatever's within 20 miles. It's a set indicator.
Okay, so it's not.
It's not Ireland.
Okay, so we haven't got loads of kids that are 20 miles away.
Well, we could have, and that might be because that's the right place for them to be. If we've moved the child to their family is in, I don't know, Nottingham, then that's the right decision for the child. Then that's what we will measure. Yeah. So it's a way of just measuring. So yes.
Great, thank you for that. Now we can move to our last item. Actually, it's not the last item. And the item 10, look after children's sufficiency strategy. And this is a progress report. Are you the...
For the presentation, trying to do that on the screen.
Yeah. So this report is for the panel to obviously know, but also to have an opportunity to ask questions on statistics, and because this is again an offset recommendation. It's an area that requires improvement. Ask you to give us a brief introduction of the report, because obviously it's provided and we all had a chance to look at it. So if you just give us the highlights and the concerns, and open up for questions.
Like I said, this is Harringay's looked after sufficiency strategy 2022 to 2026, and it's an update. Okay. So this report has been discussed with this committee, the CLT community scrutiny in March 2023, in February 2023, in terms of what happened since then. As outlined in this strategy, you will see 8 priority indicators. So the first one is expanding our education offer, and residential placement step downs.
So
Placement provision, both in borough and out of borough. Step-up, step-down options for high-risk young people, those associated with gangs, the risk of exploitation, both criminal and sexual exploitation. Priority 4 was to strengthen discharge planning services. Priority 5 to expand placement options for 16 to 18-year-olds. Priority 6 was to improve permanency options for children in care and caregivers. Priority 7, strengthen our approach to meeting the needs of children and young people with disabilities with their families. Priority 8, build a workforce with skills, expertise, and qualities to ensure that our children and young people develop appropriately when they're in care, and with the Haringey way across the wider Haringey workforce. So, move on to part 3. So setting the scene, some of the national challenges we've experienced around our lack of efficiency strategy. But as you can appreciate, there is an increased level of complexity coming through the front doors of our service. There's year-on-year rises in referrals. There's issues with children going missing, going into contextual harm. That's quite complicated now in terms of finding placements for those children. And there's an increase in child poverty. Cost of living crisis has gone up. But issues with no recourse to public funds families, intentionally homeless families, and the rise in rental and adult costs. I mentioned earlier, there's a shortage of social workers and the additional cost of employing agency staff continues to rise. There's significant uplifts being a provider's market that we're in, and so they're renegotiating costs in a market that's very, very rigid and constrained. The lack of placement is increasing the cost pressures to the council, and this is just a national picture, not a local picture. Coupled with the new Ofsted regulation for placement for 16 and 17-year-olds, has decreased the provision, but I'm happy to say we've got relationships with providers in our local communities, and we've been able to ensure that we've got enough placement sufficiency to cater for the needs. An additional challenge also, the last one in terms of challenges, was the unaccompanied minors, seeking children coming through at various stages and needing additional support and performance they've experienced on their journey. And that's also an additional pressure in terms of sufficiency. So moving on to paragraph 24. So the key measures from the plan. What we said, difference. So first point, in-borough placement capacity for children and young people. Like this reads, so we're expanding in terms of provision. We're on track with a mix of activities for residential provision and provision currently in phase, and I'll talk about that as well later on. So we've got a mix of provisions that we've identified. So what I'm pleased to say, Blue, Hazelmere Children's Home, residential children's home, has been opened in 2023. That's a 6-bedded unit for children with complex difficulties, complex needs. The number of in-house foster carers you'll see is amber. So we've recruited 8 additional foster carers. However, 9, due to our aging population of foster carers, have also deregistered and resigned. So there's a cause and effect in terms of the process at the moment. To mitigate that, though, we've been able to increase capacity through the use of agreeing kinship and special guardianship arrangements. So we've got an increase in those that gives us additional capacity in the service. Moving on to the next one, so the number of children placed in good and outstanding provision. So we've got 21 children in residential provisions, 3 in outstanding provisions, 16 in good provisions, and 1 that requires improvement, which recently dropped from a good to require some improvement. scenario, which we risk assess. And then we've got one child in a residential unit that's not yet inspected, but is in the process of being inspected quite soon. So in terms of the priorities, so priority one, expand our edge of care offer and use of non-residential placement step-down options. So at this point, we've got a multi-agency panel, an edge of care panel that meets fortnightly, chaired by myself, where we've got various professionals from CAMS, therapists, the Brandon Centre, and on this panel, I can look at identifying and ensuring that the support is there to enable the children to be placed in the right places at the right time. So we've got a supportive package underneath it. And we've mobilised the support services from our family group conferences section and our family mediation hub together to offer support to families in need that are struggling and to ensure that we keep families together within the spirit of the been referred to the family group conference and mediation service, and 14 continue to stay successfully within their families. And we are continuing to drive that as a main focus of our strategy to keep children together when it is safe to do so. Children looked after numbers remain on a historic low. So luckily when I came in, the numbers for children looked after were around about 380. We are now on 344. And our rate of looked after children has moved from the highest quartile, the top 8 in London, into the interquartile range, mid-range. And this is in comparison with our statistical neighbours that we are improving in terms of the numbers of children coming into care. So, priority 2, increase the stability of placement provision both in borough and out of borough. For the moment, there's been a lot of work to look at this issue. And at the moment, we set ourselves a target of 20 in-house foster carers for 23-24. And we've been successful in obtaining 131 inquiries to be a foster carer. So the foster carers have been recruited to date. And one foster carer is looking to apply for the extension to our house to increase capacity. And we have 3 potential carers in stage 2 of the assessment process and 9 at the approval stage. So it shows you that we've got 9 foster carers waiting to be approved. We've got 8 we've already identified. So we are on a good trajectory moving forward about the foster carers in terms of our target. The key challenge is the 950 registered, but as I mentioned before, we've got an aging population of foster carers, so we need to have a strategy on that, which we're looking to implement. So we've got 42 special guardian assessments have also been completed, again, adding to the increased capacity. Hazelmere has been open, and it's a 6-bedded unit, and we already have in place for that 6-bedded unit, Islington Council supporting with the operational costs of Hazelmere. They've booked a bed, a block booked a bed within the children's home to support our sufficiency strategy, as well as catering for their demand when they need it. And working with our commissioning service, and I'm working with the commissioners around identifying a parent and child assessment service, and that company that's in the pipeline as we're moving forward. So we have been looking at properties, we've been identifying properties that we can do this, and at the moment it's been given the green light by various committees and finance partners.
Sorry, can I just say that obviously quite a lot that is already in the report.
Okay, all right.
Kind of, hopefully, we all have a chance to kind of have a look at it. It's just, I know that like the time is obviously running out. We need to finish the meeting by 9 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm just conscious that there might be questions, like I would rather have more time. But if there's something you want to add or finish with.
I think the report is self-explanatory in terms of where we are and what the picture is, so I'm happy to take questions.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, so there's two questions. I'll take Anna first, then Sue and Mark. Please make your questions short and answers short. Yeah, Anna.
Thanks, Chair. I'll try to keep it short, but I do want to phrase the question correctly. My question is about the slide on some of the challenges you face, and specifically the challenge of asylum-seeking children. You say on the slide that increasing numbers of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children often require age assessments. And I wonder if you could expand on this a little more. I used to work in the refugee sector, and I know that age assessments are not precise, and sometimes they can lead to minors being wrongly classified as adults. They can be conducted in an invasive way, in a way that doesn't respect human dignity. So I'd like to know how you're mitigating these risks, how you're ensuring that also the psychological age of the child, psychological maturity of the child, and how we're carrying, what measures you're taking to make sure that these age assessments are being conducted in a child-centered and respects them.
So I'll start, and due to time, I'll be succinct. We have started a training approach. I think they sit in our young adult service, and so we work within the guidelines that are required. This is always a stressful time, and so it's not a precise science at all. So we conduct our assessments with those who are trained, and they're always open to challenge by those families should they wish to, by those young people should they wish to be challenged. It is a very hard.
Would you say sort of the practice is child-centered? I think that was
absolutely. In all our work, it is keeping the child and young person at the heart of all that we do, and so our approach is always to be child-centered. Usually, young people come with advocates, so you know that supports them to have their voice heard in those processes.
Yes, I think that's really key. So actually, one of the UNHCR's recommendations is that the child should have access to legal.
Say that again.
One of UNHCR's assessment recommendations on age assessments is that the child should have legal representation.
Absolutely, yes. We follow all the proper guidelines, and sometimes ours are contested, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's supportive to the child and young person, but actually we also have to. There are instances when we do think that somebody make the right decisions. But the issue is usually the grey areas, and so it's always hard.
I'm guessing it's not all the children that are claiming like children are not. It's only the disputed cases, or when I suppose the practitioners are kind of thinking that the child might be older than what they're looking for.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes a child is placed in foster care, and the foster care will notice behaviours and practices that are brought to our attention, and we need to look into that. Or sometimes, yes, it's a delicate and sensitive area, but when we do the assessments, we do them and they're child-centred and in line with legislation, and young people are supported. Yes, but it will always be those grey areas. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Sue, Mark, and Mash. 3 questions. Yeah. Oh, Amanda as well. Sorry. Okay, can we ask our questions?
So it might be at that age. So as we've had foster carers who we've lost because their age, do we have a cut-off point with their choice?
Their choice.
Oh, it's their choice.
Yeah.
And the other question about age was, is there a cut-off point? Is there? Do things get very different? What happens for this 16 to 18 year olds?
Just like have a go. Yeah. So our young people are children in care up until the age of turning 18. After the age of 18, they become care. They leave care technically speaking, but we still work with them and their care experience. We call them young adults, and we support them according to criteria up until age 25. So if a young person has a disability or is going to university, so there's criteria. So between about the age of 14, we begin to speak with them about, you know, getting older and that edge that happens at 18. So I think what you're referring to might be that.
Yeah, there isn't a horrible cut-off.
There's not a cut-off.
Well, that's it, you sort yourself out now.
It used to be when I was a practitioner, it was dreadful, but we don't do that now. Even if young people decide that they, you know, they are happy, they're 18, they're going off into the world on their own, we've got a statutory requirement to keep in contact with them and know where they are. And so we...
On page number 5, you mentioned that they look after children with numbers of unknown, which is great. Just wondering, is it because that the children are growing up, so those looked after children are moving on, and there's not new ones coming in? What's the reason why? What's the reason why the numbers are down? Or that you're doing an amazing job and you get the numbers?
Well, I would like to say that we're doing an amazing job with our aged care strategy to reduce the number of children community care, but support into the home, and hopefully, and then that way the numbers are coming down. Is what my view is. That strategy that we put in place 2 years ago is now starting to work.
Yeah, can I add to that, that we significantly improved our early health service, and our early health, we have an early health practitioner at the very start in the match, and that our early health service is stronger and provides support for parents. And you know, and that would be one of the things. But it's a set of factors that lead to the numbers coming down. Well, so I say to Councillor Brabazon, to the leader and the chief exec, and anyone who asks me, we have the right number of children in care who should be in care. The number is the number. If the number doubles and every one of them should be in care, as the director, I support that number. If the number halves, then then that's the number. So I don't chase a number. I just want the right children in care. If the number drops too low, then I will be asking every one of my officers to audit, check, who is outside of care, who should be in care. And if the numbers double, I will be audit, that we have got too many in care. So it's the right children and the right young people in care that we need. It's, yeah, I hope that's it.
First of all, thank you very much for the report. You guys are doing this. The question I have in my head is more around my understanding. One of them is that in-house foster care is those who live in the borough, or is it?
No, in-house foster care is our own foster carers that we have that work.
Okay, so not right.
So it's in-house foster
So
carers.
that's the ones that we
found as opposed to agency.
Yes.
So when it comes to unaccompanied kids, do the foster carers need special training for that?
foster care.
No, specifically to look after people
Oh,
who are unaccompanied refugee children.
Well, I think that we provide them with support to care for all our children, and so the needs of our children who happen to be unaccompanied are the needs of children. So there isn't, I don't think, of course.
No, but obviously they may have experienced their yeah, exactly. But they may have experienced trauma, what I referred to before. So that's what we do. So we'll mobilise those support services with the foster carers, so they are supported in meeting the needs of the child from wherever they come in that placement. Yeah.
I was
They are
going to
supported.
ask if there are sets sort of training requirement, or like basic training for foster carers to obviously be able to deal with children.
It's
not
rigorous.
being through
It's
trauma.
rigorous. So they must do trauma, they must do skin care, hair care, food. It is large.
Bring in the child to come through a very
went through a massive journey, separated from family, can't speak to language, will have the challenges, and then similarly looking after those children.
Yes. Interestingly, if I might add, at the event, I think, were you there when the asylum seeking foster carer, the foster carer who chose to look after unaccompanied minors, that's become her specialism. And that was her award, wasn't it? Yeah. And she obviously felt that was where her skills and her heart was, you know.
And they are not a homogenous group, and I know that's not what you mean. So they can be from anywhere in the world, with different needs, and they arrive through different routes. Some incredibly traumatized, absolutely incredibly traumatized, and others would have come a less traumatic route. Not being away from the family is traumatizing, but I hope you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
You know.
At least they're not being put in war or some sort of like half of the paper.
Yeah. Yes. Well, some not. Some are, you know, they are called unaccompanied asylum-seeking children and young people, but some of them still. We yes.
Just more my curiosity. Great. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Last person question. Apologies. Page 11, priority 7.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Linda. Priority 7.
Priority 7. So I'm just reading what priority 7 was saying. My interest is, it says here that this priority would be informed by work that has already begun and going to develop our preparation for adult strategy. I'm interested particularly in the offer for respite care. And it says here, children may stay overnight in a residential setting. We don't have any at the moment, do we? We're not in a position where our young people or families, certainly, which is another issue for the membership, for a lot of the membership, is not actually having any respite care or having any access to respite care, because we know that states have now gone, so they're not providing that care, and families are desperate. So I know it says here about the short break statement, and I'm also very aware of the role that Seven Power has been in trying to get certainly some assistance with respite care and helping form the strategy and the RAS form and all of that. So I just wanted a little clarity on the respite care, because it says here that there isn't any respite care. So how are we addressing that, and how is that informed by the work that's currently being done with preparation for adults?
So Amanda, I'm really pleased that you're involved in all of that work, and so you know the answer to the question that you're asking. That we don't.
Maybe everybody else does.
So yes, so we're going to. So we did have overnight care, and like you say, Buckingham State has moved on, and so our proposal is to develop provision in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll stop there, and when we have done that work, we will come back.
It's just that it's such, if I quote families saying it's like being in a war zone, and having sleep deprivation is something that's used as a prisoner of war tactic. But I'm not saying it lightheartedly, because it really is. It has an impact on how the children go to school. It has an impact on so many other things, and the parents and carers' ability to be able to care for their young people is something that's really close to my heart. So I just wanted to kind of raise that. I guess I am aware, but I'm sure.
I think you're saying basically loud and clear that that service is needed by parents and
Like last
carers
year.
and like last year. And as far as the committee is aware, there is a strategy to work on it, and you will be part of it and representing the views of the parents, carers that we support. I'm glad to hear that there is a planning
And investment.
yeah, yes, investment, and we would like to, obviously, this committee will be briefed and updated about the progress on that.
Can I ask Amanda to tell us all the detail of the plans that we've got in place and the size of the investment?
Brilliant, thank you.
Because you were part of the
That's definitely not my thing to do.
Well, you know, we are one in making improvements, so.
We are strategic partners.
Exactly.
From a personal point of view, there was a time nobody noticed there was 168 hours in a week. And I have, for 5 years, I was with my child, my second child, who is now 23, for 165 of those hours every week. And I know, so I have a personal, thing about the parents that, and my child slept at night, so I was one of the fortunate ones. But some families that don't have that, it really is difficult, and unless you live it, kind of you don't know it, do you know what I mean? We can talk about it and stuff, but for me, I can speak from personal experience because I know what that is. But like I say, I was fortunate because my sleep at night. But 165 hours to stay with your child out of 168 is unhealthy. But you know what I mean? That's why I needed to bring it up. Oh, yes, the strategic partners.
Thank you
We
very
will
much
do the
for
best that
bringing
we
that up. Okay, so we will close this discussion, and I'm going to move to item 11, work plan updates.
Yeah, there's not a lot to say this, Chair, but the work programme is on page 41 of your agenda pack, and it's just a note. And the work programme, so this is the last. And the calendar. Will be agreed by annual council in May. The draft.
Right, so this meeting being the last meeting of this year, I would like to take this opportunity as the chair to say thank you to all the members who contributed tirelessly, and thank you to our valuable officers who contributed immensely, and Councillor Brownson, who's blessed that she's been here all the time and answering all our questions. Thank you so much, everyone, officers, and thank you so much, Philip, for obviously taking over from Rob and managing the meetings. I also wanted to basically mention something else before we kind of move to the closing the meeting. One of our long-serving court members, Lord Skiba, emailed us that she would be stepping down from this committee. And again, I wanted to take this opportunity to say a massive thanks to her for serving for many, many years, dedicated to this committee and fighting for the rights of the children and schools and many other causes. So, Lord, thank you so much for that. And I think it will be just really useful to send on behalf of this committee thank you letter from all of us saying that thank you for your contribution to the community. Items of urgent business, none. Future meeting updates, we've already told that, yes, it's going to be after the May timetable. Yes, Anne, you wanted to say something?
Chair, earlier, I think you wanted me to mention the recent inspection that we've had. Shall I very quick, just to say that we had another inspection?
I think the reason I didn't ask because while you were out, Councillor.
Okay. Perfect.
And I felt like, okay,
It's done.
Yes, it's done.
Go
Hopefully, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Honestly, I'm very sorry, the noise.
Thank you. Good evening.
At some point, I felt like I don't even know what I'm saying. It's like,
Apologies for that.